Okay, good. That's when we use the soap.
It's clean.
I have a thing.
So do I.
Good afternoon, everyone. This week's parsha, the Torah says, "Vayihom ki misonami." Jewish people were kid misonami, like complainers. Onan is someone that is bereft, depressed, frustrated, and therefore there's room for complaint. So the immediate question arises, why does it say Kim Misonanim? It should say Misonanim. Like. So Rashi addresses the problem by saying that they really had nothing to complain about. The Vakshin Alila, they're looking for an excuse. But to a certain extent, this begs the question, why were they looking for an excuse? What was bothering them? So in the Torah itself, in the narrative of the Torah, they complain about the food. We remember that in Egypt we had food to eat, fish, and all sorts of vegetables, and watermelon, everything was great. And here we are forced to eat the mun. We're tired of it. We don't want to eat it anymore. So the complaint is about food. So the Mefarshim point out that they did not complain out loud. They did not make a public complaint. That's why it says Kim is Sonami. They complained inside. Yeah. And by complaining inside, it says Vayishma Hashem. Only the Rabbanu Shalom heard them. Moshe didn't know what was wrong here. Moshe was unaware yet, because their complaint was held within them. So the Rabbanu Shalom heard their complaint. And that's Kim Isonani, the inside complaint, as though they complained on the outside. And this was the source of their downfall. The Gemara also points out that they complain not only because of the mun, they complain because of arroyos, because of the fact that now they were limited. And the Farshim all raised the question, the Kleyokar and others, arroyos they were told that on Sinai already. Why, this is later. If they were going to complain, why didn't they complain then? So this fits with what Rashi says, that Mevakshin Alila, they're just looking for something. But if the Kleyokar says here a deep idea. He says even the complaint about food was really a complaint about arroyos. Machlekes in the Gemara, Rav and Shmuel, when they said Zocharnu esadogo v'sabosa shenolchal. So Rav says it's talking about fish, it's talking about meat. And Shmuel says those are euphemisms. It's talking about women. So that the original complaint was also about our royals. Yeah. They complained about it. They felt limited by it. So the Farshim point down here, the Boni Shalom, so to speak, channeled them. He restricted them. Because so he said, if the Boni Shalom doesn't want our royals, then we should be celibate. And, we should be, just as throughout history, there have been people who have somehow associated celibacy with holiness. At the time of the Bayesheni, the Yisiyim were like that. The Bayesh clergy is like that. Somehow celibacy is associated with holiness. But in the halacha, celibacy is forbidden. Not only did God not want us to be celibate, He gave us the mitzvah pru'ervu. He instituted marriage and family life. So they said to themselves, that this is a contradiction. On one hand, He is limiting us. He's restricting our desires. On the other hand, He insists that we have them and act upon them. So which is it? And that was the issue that they posed. And that's why it says that when Moshe came, they wept, they wept about their family status. That on one hand, they had to be parents and families. On the other hand, they were restricted. So they said that people can't exist that way. So to speak, it's all or nothing, which is a human trait. Once you let it go, so then everything is with it. So then nothing can go, so then that's a different situation. And because of these limitations, that's what their complaint was. This second complaint was already public. By Yivku, they wept publicly. And they said to Moshe, Loma Elisodim in Mitzrayim, who asked you to take us out of Mitzrayim? Well, the Gemara says an interesting thing. There's a question halacha whether or not freeing a slave, talking about an Evet Knani, whether that's called a schus for the slave or not, whether it's a meritorious thing. The slave really do it. But there's one opinion in the Talmud that Abdo Befkeiro Nechale. He wants, part of him wants to remain a slave because then he has no responsibilities. Zilale, Fritzale, he can do whatever he wants. And now when you free him and when you give him civic responsibilities and you make him part of the society, he resents it. I remember that when I had the interview with the Shliach to make Aliyah a long time ago, almost 30 years ago. So he said, you should know that if you come to Israel, though, you're going to have to pay taxes in Israel. So I said, well, I fully intend to pay taxes in Israel. Why not? He said, a lot of people come and they think they don't have to pay taxes. It's enough that they came. And if you tell them in advance that they have to pay taxes, so then they think it over again. They think maybe it's not worth it. So that's the mentality that people have. That's Abdo Befkeir Nechole. And that's what the Misonanim complained about. All of a sudden, there are all these rules. They're restricted. They don't want to be inhibited. Moshe finds himself at a loss how to deal with this. It's one of the few places in the Torah where we see Ki Hozla Asiyad Moshe, that he doesn't have the strength to deal with it. The Lord has to intervene. There's an idea that Meforshim also mentioned that by the ego, for instance, Moshe is strong as a statue. He's as firm as can be. The ego apparently, at the surface, we would judge it to be a far greater breach of Torah, a crime against the Rabbanu Shalom than here. Here they're only complaining about it. Didn't do anything. So why here is he powerless? So I remember Rabbi Lamb used to always say that Moshe can deal with the Jewish people on all levels, but when they complain about the pickles, then he can't do anything anymore. Then it's out of his league. He can't identify with the problem anymore. And here they're complaining that they don't have these vegetables, they don't have the watermelon, and that Moshe has no answer. If you want to debate theology with Moshe, he's willing. You want to talk why Avodah Zorah is wrong, he's willing to talk to you. But when it comes to talking about an Avatiach, that the Moshe is not able to do so. So the Misonanim is a very difficult parsha here in the Torah. But unfortunately, it's one that reveals itself and repeats itself many times in Jewish life. The inner complaints that make a person feel depressed and frustrated. If that happens, we take it out on others. And here they're taking it out on Moshe and Kaviyachal and the Rabbanu Shalom as well. And this is the beginning of the decline of the Dor HaMidbar that I talked about yesterday, that is traced throughout this Chumash Bamidbar. Rabbi Hanani ben Akashio ben Ratzak ben Yisborach ben Nachal ben Yisrael, ben Bichal Kirba Lahem Torah.